Hey guys, Rob Butterfield Garage here. So today what I wanted to walk you through is the process that I use for doing wide open throttle tuning. So that's tuning both the MAF, so mass airflow tuning for the air fuel ratio, and then also the timing. And before you can do this, you have to make sure your car is actually running good running condition, that you have a good base tune in it before you start this process, and you have to have a wideband. So you can't do this unless you have a wideband connected to your vehicle. And from a disclaimer standpoint, wide open throttle tuning can be dangerous to your vehicle, and this video is merely here to walk you through the process that I'm using. It's not designed to be a how-to, and I'm not advocating that you should follow my process. This process works for me, but I can't guarantee it'll work for you. So if you decide to do any of this, it's on you. Any problems you have is on you. It's not on me. I'm I'm not a tuner for hire here. I'm just walking you through the process that I use. If you have any uncertainties on this, then you need to take your vehicle to a professional tuner and have them tune it for you. So I'm going to start out by looking at the VCM scanner here, and I will also say that this is the tune that I'm doing here. The tuning was on a 2016 Camaro SS. It has a Whipple supercharger on it, and so this tuning is relative to the GM Gen 5. First thing we're going to look at is some of the parameters that I'm logging and that I'm following here. So I'm logging RPMs here, I'm logging boost. I usually do also log the vehicle speed as well, but I'm not including that here just to protect the innocent. So I'm also logging the mass airflow sensor, and this is frequency or in hertz that we're logging it. So this is the one I need for that. And then I'm also logging the cylinder air grams. You're going to want to log that. And then from a timing aspect, you're going to want to log your the spark that you're seeing, and also any knock that you're seeing, and the IATs here. And from a fuel standpoint, I'm logging the fuel rail pressure, so the high pressure fuel pump, the low pressure fuel pump, and also the injectors. And then down below here, what I'm logging is I'm logging lambda. So I'm logging the lambda that's coming from my wideband, and I'm logging what the commanded EQ ratio or lambda is from the vehicle. I'm logging an air rate, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and I'll show you how to set that up. And in my case, I'm running ethanol, so I'm running some ethanol E85 in the car, so I'm also logging my alcohol percentage. So you got to make sure that you have all these set up. Um, this is not a how to use HP Tuners video, so you need to make sure that you're able to set these up in your parameters here, that you're logging them properly here. You should know how to upload and download a tune from your car. So this is not a beginner how-to video on using HP tuners. I'm assuming that you already know this stuff. If not, there's plenty of videos available that would show you this. So the other thing that you're going to want to know here, because we're doing MAF tuning here, so we want to know what our frequency is throughout the poles. So essentially where I'm tuning, what this tuning is for, is this tuning is wide open throttle. So I'm tuning essentially from 3,000 RPMs up to the max RPMs. So if I have a log here, so this log right here is going to tell me that I'm at, this is 2,900 RPMs right here. The mass airflow in hertz is at 6,700 right here. And so if from here is where I get on the throttle, so we can see the accelerator position, which is this, and then this is the throttle body where the opening is there. So the sensor in the throttle body is what we're seeing there. So we pull from, let's call it 6,700, and you can see the mass airflow is increasing. So it's up to, let's call it 9,800 there. So let's call it 10,000. So basically I'm tuning from 6,700 up to 10,000 is where I'm tuning this. And I would give myself a little room. So so at this point I would write this down. We're going to tune between 6,000 and 10,000 mass airflow hertz, just to have that for later. We'll need that later on in the process. So what we want to set up right now, we need to set up a graph right now to log our EQ air ratio, the air. And so if we look at, okay, so in this case, this is an example of what this air is doing right here. So my wideband right now, the wideband at this exact point in time, the wideband was reading at 1.07. Stoichiometric is 1. So in this case right here, this is before I started the poll, so the commanded EQ ratio was 1. So in this case, I have a wide bands at 107, so the difference between those two is 7. So 101.07 minus 1 is 7, divided by 1 is 7%. So this is telling me that I have an error ratio of 7% at this point in time. And so that's what this is doing. So if we come into the math right here, we're going to go to tools. We'll look at this just to give you a little more view of this. So math parameters right here. If we go under the math predefined, we have this lambda AFR section here. You have an EQ air ratio that's set up in here for you. And you can see that's exactly what this is doing. It's taking this one right here, which is your sensor that's hooked up to your wideband, and it's subtracting the commanded, so that was right here. It's taking the 1.07 minus the 1, and then it's dividing it by the commanded, so it's dividing by 1. So that's what this formula is doing in here to come up with this air ratio. So now if we go to our graphs right here, we're going to want to graph that. So I'm going to remove this one. Graph layout. I'll remove it and add it back in here for you. So we're going to remove that graph, and we're going to start from the beginning here. So we're going to want to add that graph to here so we can track that later. So add table, come in here, new table. We're going to click on the parameter here, and we're going to go down to the math down here at the bottom. We have this lambda AFR section right here. We're going to select the EQ ratio air right there, which is what I showed you earlier. From there, we're going to want to have average here. We're going to want a percent here. Decimal can be 1 or 2. In this case, I'm just going to leave it at 1. New variable, no. Hit, cell hits, so this is the number of cells it requires to register something. We're going to add that to 5. We won't worry about the color. You can change that if you want. And then here on column axis, we're going to need to add the mass airflow sensor in frequency or hertz here. So we're going to click on this. We're going to type in the box up top here, mass airflow sensor right there. Mass airflow sensor frequency is the one you want. This is the engine specific one. It'll ask us if we want the generic one here. So click, do you want the generic sensor instead? We're going to click yes there. So yes, sounds good. And so from here, now we need to get the values that we need for the column axes. So you're going to have to go into your tune now. So we're going to go back into our HP tuners where our tune is right here. And so you have had to have downloaded your tune into your existing tune into HP tuners here. I'm assuming you already know how to do that. So we'll go to engine here. We're going to go to airflow. Under airflow, you have your airflow versus frequency right here. And what you're going to do is we'll expand that out. And so I like to see this in a split screen, so the numbers across the top, graph down at the bottom. So you click over here, so you can see if you click on the no split over here, it just has the 1, but I like the split screen, so you're going to want to click on that. And here we'll just click. We'll click in the corner here. It'll highlight everything, and then we will right click and then come down here to column axes, and we're copying the labels. So now we're just copying the labels along the top here. We want that to match what's in our graph, or what's in our tune is what's in our graph. So we copied that. Now we're going to go back over to the VCM scanner here. We'll click in the values box right here. Again, I will right click here and I'll click on paste. So it pasted the values from your tune for your columns, so now we match. Okay, so now we have our EQ air ratio here, and now we're going to go temporarily. What we'll do is we'll go back into the tune now. So we're going to go back into our tune and start from there. So essentially at this point you've downloaded the tune into the vehicle, and you just have to make a few changes in here or verify some information here is correct before you can start to do the poll and start to actually log the data. So we're going to go into engine here, and we're going to go to airflow, engine airflow. We'll go to dynamic, and what we're doing right now is we're trying to put the vehicle so we're only having our mass airflow tuning enabled. So we want MAF tuning enabled on the vehicle only, so the computer is relying on the mass airflow sensor for determining how much fuel is in the vehicle. We don't want it to override anything else, add an additional fuel. So where you'd go is you need to look at your values that you have here for the high RPM disable and the high RPM re-enable right here. So essentially what this is saying is that if your RPMs are above this number, the vehicle will go into MAF only tuning. And if you look at a stock vehicle is probably going to have this set at like 4,000 here and maybe 3,800 here. But we want to only use mass airflow tuning, and we're starting to tune at 3,000, so this number has to be less than 3,000. These numbers right here, these are permanent numbers that are set in my car, because anytime I'm over 1,200 RPMs, I'm in MAF tuning only. And that's the way that that was the tune I got from Whipple, and I have not changed that. So I don't have to make any changes here. But if you had a number of 4,000 in here, or 3,800 here, you need to lower these. So you can lower them down to the numbers I have, which is 1,200 and 1,100 here, and these are permanent numbers. So I don't increase these. These are the numbers I use all the time because this is the tune I got from Whipple, and so I have not changed these. And since I'm tuning above 3,000 RPMs, this is fine. If I was doing partial throttle tuning, I would probably even lower these more. I might lower these down to 200 and 100 temporarily and then move them back again. Okay, the next thing that you're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to fuel here, and we can go to the temperature control. And the other thing you want to turn off, so if your catalyst, your cat over temperature is enabled here, if you have enabled, you want to switch this to disabled. So what happens is, to protect your catalytic converter, the car will add additional fuel at certain temperatures, and we want to disable that. So again, this is a permanent setting that I have in my tune. Mine's always disabled, but this is designed to protect your catalytic converter. So if you want to tune this and then turn it back on later, that is up to you. But the tune I got from Whipple, when they sent me the original tune, this was disabled, and I've never turned it back on. I always run the vehicle disabled, but that is your choice. The other thing you're going to want to look at here too is on this lean fuel savings here. You're going to want to turn off your displacement on demand. And so if yours is enabled here, you want to switch this to disabled. So you need to switch that to disabled. And again, this is a permanent setting in my car, and pretty much if you have a supercharger in your car, you're not really worried about fuel economy, I wouldn't think. So I would think you'd just leave this disabled, but again, that's up to you. But mine's permanently, I always have it disabled. I do not enable this. There's a couple other things that if we were doing partial throttle tuning that we would need to turn off also. I'm going to show you those, but you don't have to do anything with these right here for the wide open throttle tuning. But in your oxygen sensors here, if you want to force the vehicle into open loop all the time, and this is not something you drive the vehicle with all the time, so you'd have to change this back. So, but in this case, you don't have to do this, because once you go into power enrichment mode on the vehicle, which is when you go to wide open throttle, it's going to go into open loop automatically, so you don't have to force it. But if you wanted to force it, you could lower this number or turn this number negative right here. But we're not going to do that for this. That would be for partial throttle MAF tuning, and we're only doing wide open throttle tuning here, so you don't have to do that. The other thing that you don't have to worry about is this cutoff. So deceleration fuel cutoff. So if you're doing partial throttle tuning, you might want to turn this off also, so it wasn't cutting off fuel. But in this case, we're doing wide open throttle tuning, so the vehicle's not going to cut it off unless you get up to max RPM. So if you wanted to temporarily, and again, this is not something you would do on this vehicle for this, but we're doing wide open throttle tuning, so you don't actually have to do that, and so we're not going to do it at this point. But if you wanted to, you could max these out, so put these up to 250 degrees or some higher temperature, and that would prevent the fuel cutoff from happening. But we're not going to do that now. I just wanted to give you a little bit of additional information for other, because if you read other stuff, you might see some people doing that stuff, but since we're doing wide open throttle tuning, we don't actually have to do that right now. So the other thing we're going to look at now is, so in my case right here, so we'll go to airflow here. We're going to go to general. So this example is essentially would be, I'm going to give you an example. So if you have a supercharger and you've changed your pulley out, so now you have a smaller pulley on the vehicle, which is going to increase the amount of boost that you're putting into the vehicle. As part of that, you're going to be pumping more air through the vehicle, so you're going to need more fuel running through the vehicle to support that additional air. And so to protect the vehicle, if that's what you're doing here, to protect the vehicle, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add more fuel into the vehicle. And this goes back to this, so wherever your boost range is at. So in this particular one, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add additional fueling. So I talked about before where we track those hertz. So these are the mass airflow and frequency right here. And if you recall earlier, what I said is that the range we're going to be tuning from is from 6,000 hertz up to 10,000 hertz. So what I would do here, because I've added a pulley, I've changed out the pulley on the car, I'm running more fuel, or I'm running more air through the car, but the air is only happening when I'm under boost. So I'm just tuning the boost area, essentially, is what I'm tuning here. If you put headers on the car, you did something different like that, you're going to have to tune the entire range. But I'm only showing you wide open throttle tuning right now, and I'll do another one on partial throttle MAF tuning, but right now it's only wide open throttle tuning. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down here, and so I'm going to highlight. So I'm highlighting from 6,000 here, so I'm going to hold down my shift button while I move the arrow to the right here. I'm going to highlight from 6,000 all the way up to 10,000, because I know from looking at it, so we'll go at just over 10,000, so 10,050. So I know this is the range I'm tuning because I'm looking at a prior log from my car, and that's telling me that that's my boost range. So what I'm going to do is I want to add fuel to this section of the tune. So so if you wanted to add, let's use 10% example. So I would go 1.10, and I would multiply it by that, and then what it's going to do, it's going to add 10% fueling essentially to that range that I've highlighted. And so you will see the graph down here, this will increase, this will move up. So we're going to add 10%. So you could add, if you want an extra layer of safety here, you can add 15% or you can add 20%. So somewhere between that 10 to 20%. In this example, we'll use 10, so I'm going to multiply this by 10. And so it has increased everything in that range up 10%. So I've added 10% fueling to the vehicle. So the next thing we want to look at is we want to look at the timing. So under this example, if we would have added boost to the vehicle, and we're tuning for boost, so we have to add fuel to it, and as part of that, if we haven't changed the octane on the fuel we're using, we're also going to have to decrease the timing on the vehicle so we don't get any engine knock. So the next thing we're going to look at here is the timing. From a timing perspective, again, so I'm going to go back to my log here and show you one thing on here. So the thing you need to know from a timing perspective is your cylinder air grams right here and where they're at. So in this case right here, I talked about that we're going to tune from 3,000 RPMs and up. So we'll move this thing over here to see. So at 3,000 RPMs, so 3,000 RPMs here, our cylinder air grams is 0.73. So you need to know those two numbers right there. And now we'll go back into the tune here for a second. So we're going to go to the tune, and we're going to go to spark, and we're going to go into our high octane table. Okay, so we're in our high octane table now. So we're going to find those two. So we're going to find, so we're at, one more time, we're at 0.73 at 3000. So we're going to find that. So we're going to come in here, we're going to go to our tune. So this is our RPMs right here. And so we're going to find that cross section. So here you have 0.71 and 3000 shows that it's at spark advance of 23 right here. I'm going to add a little bit of layer of safety to this, so I'm going to actually go up one, so I'm at 0.67 now at 3000. I'm going to move over 2. So we're going to go from 2600 RPMs at 0.67, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything down and over from there. And what I'm going to do is we want to remove timing from this section. So this entire section right here, we're going to remove timing from it. So to do that, what I would do is I'd come up here and I would enter in a negative number. So you're going to see, so we're going to enter in -5. So we're going to remove 5 degrees timing from this section right here to provide some safety to the vehicle while we're tuning the fuel, and then we'll add back the timing later. So here we're going to add a negative, which is going to reduce it. So we'll see this 25 right here go to 20. So we're going to hit plus here. And now this is at 20. So we've reduced the timing on this whole section right here. And you're going to want to write that down so you know that later. So we went from 2600 RPMs at 0.67 cylinder air grams. So we'll write that down for later, because that's the section later we're going to add timing back to as we go through this. So we've done it on the high octane table. We need to do the exact same thing on the other table. So what I'll do is, so you can copy that, and then we'll go into our other table. So our high octane table's been modified. We want to modify the low octane table. Do the same thing here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to 2600 RPMs just like on the other one, and we're at 0.67. So 0.67 and 2300 RPMs is here. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to go across here, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put a -5 here, we're going to add it, which is going to reduce the timing in this area. So plus, and so we're done there. Okay. All right, now what you're going to do is you're going to save this tune. So you're going to save this tune right here. I'm going to close it out. We're going to come here, we're going to do File, Save As, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it today's date. Today's May 10th, so I'm going to put 0510 here. This right here could be your pulley size if you're doing it. So if your pulley size, I put my pulley size here. I'm telling myself I'm doing AFR timing, and I would just label it adjusted number 1 or starting tune. Adjusted tune 1. We'll just call it that. Okay, so we're going to save that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this adjusted tune and you're going to load it into your vehicle. I'm not going to go through that. That's something you should know how to do already if you're trying to do this. So you're going to load that tune into the vehicle, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do a log of what you're seeing. So we're going to go back to the scanner right here. Now in this example, this is one I've already done, but what you would do is, of course, you're going to connect to your vehicle, you're going to make sure your scanner's running, you're going to make sure all your parameters are showing up properly here before you start it, you're going to let the vehicle warm up properly before you do a full throttle pull. It says you pull it out of the driveway and you hit the gas. You got to make sure your vehicle's properly warmed up before you do this. So we're going to assume all that's happened. So at this point, what you want to do is what I do is I go into I have an automatic vehicle, so I go into manual mode at this point. So I'm in manual mode at this point, and I'm in, let's say you're doing a second gear pull. So what you want to do is you want to be in this example, let's say you're in second gear, third gear, whatever gear you can get into without your tires spinning too badly. So you can do a pull up to where your shift point is and your RPM. So in this case right here, let's assume I'm in a second gear pull right here. I'm finding a safe place to do this, closed track, or maybe you're just getting onto the freeway or something like that, and you can go up to 70 miles per hour. So in second gear, maybe your max RPMs is about 70 miles per hour, so you can do this safely in a street environment. Otherwise, you're going to need to be on a closed track. So what we would do here is we would do a pull. So right here, you can see I'm at like 2,900 RPMs. I ended up getting into the gas here. My RPMs are building, and you can see I'm at accelerator position pedal, got my throttle body position there, and I'm under boost at this point. My mass airflow is building. It's tracking my air right here, and I'm going to pull all the way through until I get to how many ever RPMs. In this case, we're at 6,400 RPMs, and then I'm going to shift, and then I'm going to decelerate, let off the throttle, and look at that pull. So then I would come back to this data right here, and things I want to make sure of as I look at this is, before we look at the air, is I want to make sure I didn't have any knock, and you shouldn't have knock. You've removed 5 degrees, but you want to make sure you had zero knock through this pull. You also want to look at your fuel road pressure and your fuel road pressure. So this fuel road pressure, this has the LT4 high pressure fuel pump in it. So I'm requesting 2,900, I think, and I'm around 2,800. So you want to make sure you're not seeing a dive off in your fuel rail pressure here. And I mean, I think the LT1's like 2,100, so as long as you're staying above that, you're probably okay. And then the intake pump right here, I'm running around 71 right here, but again, you don't want to see this diving down somewhere. That tells you you're out of fuel, and you got to just stop it there. You can't just keep going if you're fuel. So I think the LT1's around 40, so if you're in that 40 range, you're probably okay there. And then also you need to look at your injector pulse width. So if this is approaching, if you're getting over 6 here, you're running out of fuel, and you need to get more fuel before you can continue this. But in our case, we're good. We're at 3.9 here, almost at 71. We're at 2,800, so our fueling's good. We got no knock. So, all right, assuming all that's good for you, now we're going to go to the graph. So we're going to go to this graph we created here. So we have this EQ air graph right here, and we're going to look now. If you look at this, so you can go max. So if the plus was here, it would be max values, minimum values, but we're clicked on average. So this shows the average air rate that we saw over that period of time for these different, during that pull, for these different mass airflow frequencies here. And you can click only, so it's only picking up the data in this range, but we're going to pick up all of it here because, in the wide open throttle, this is the only time we saw this stuff. So essentially what this is telling us here, so it starts at, we talked about the 10,000, we're tuning from this 10,500 down to 6,000. So what this is telling us right here, so if we look at this right here in this example, so it's a -5, so that means that essentially we have 5% too much fuel right now compared to what we're commanding. So you can see that over here, because our EQ ratio commanded is 0.82, but we're only getting 0.74. So we're at a point here right now where we're running rich. So the vehicle's providing too much fuel. So we need to tell the vehicle we have too much fuel, and you're going to see this. You could very well see this, and you should see this to start with, because you want to start in the safe range. You want to start rich. And so that's why we added fuel to the vehicle before we started doing this, that 10%. And if you want to be, I would actually suggest you even throw more into there, probably 15%. In our example, we use 10, but I would probably throw a little more, especially if you're starting out. Maybe even throw 20% in there. But this is telling us we're running rich right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight from the 10,500. We never actually reached that range, but let's highlight from 10,500, hold down our shift, and then we're going to go all the way down. Remember we talked about earlier, we wrote down that we're going to tune from 6,000 mass airflow hertz up to 10,000. So we have all those highlighted right now. What we're going to do is we're going to right click, we're going to copy. So I'm going to left click by copying. So we've copied those right now. Now we're going to go back to the tune. So we have that tune we saved earlier. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tell the vehicle that we have too much fuel, so we need less fuel because we're rich there right now. So we're going to go to airflow here, we're going to go to mass airflow frequency. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to find that same range, so the exact same range. Go here. So we're going to find 6,000. So we'll start at 6,000. So we'll click on 6,000. We'll hold down the shift button. I'm going to move to the right here until I get to 10,050, which is the range. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. So we're going to right click. We're going to go down here to paste special. And you have two choices here. So you can multiply by percentage here. And so if you multiply it by percentage, it would take that 5% we were seeing earlier, and it would basically reduce the amount of fuel by 5%. Or if you want to sneak up on it, which is usually, so if you're way far off, then I would usually multiply by the full number, and then as you get closer, you start to use this multiply by half, because you only want to do a little bit at a time as you're getting closer and closer to being where you want to be. So in this case, we'll just say multiply by percentage here. So we multiplied by our percentage here, and it's reduced the amount of fuel. So the amount of fuel we're going to get to now is going to be reduced. And you see this one weird spot right here. So we got this weird, you don't want any of these weird high points that we're seeing right here. And so that is at, you can see if we click on that, you can see up top here what's highlighted when I do that. If you look at the 10,500 along the top, that it's weird there, because right now you actually have a situation where the you got a spike there. So usually I like to clean up those. So if you have any spikes there, what you do is, so I'm going to go up top here now, and I'm going to go to here, and so I'm going to highlight the 9,900 there, and you can see the 10,050 has a spike there, and then 10,200. And so I just want to smooth that out in between those two. So I want to bring this number down because I don't want a spike. I want a gradual changes here. So if you see those spikes anywhere, you can. So I'll go to here, and we'll go to this interpolate between horizontal bounds. So basically it just gives you an average in between those two. So we'll click this, and you'll see the 10,050 will change. So we're going to click that. So that 10,050 now is kind of right in between there. So it's smoothed out. So we smooth that out. Okay, now what you'd do is you would save this. So we'd go to File, Save As, and we're going to, the same number right here, except for this time I'm going to call it number 2 because it's the second one I've done here. And we're going to go 2 there, and then we'll save it. So once you save that, and then you're going to upload this tune into your vehicle. So you'll go through the process, you'll upload this tune, you'll go back over here, and you'll do another poll. So you're going to go back through the exact same process again. You're going to get up to 3,000 RPMs. You're going to do a full poll all the way up to your max RPMs before you shift it. And then you're going to go back to your graph here, and you're going to see what the numbers are here. And the numbers should have gotten closer at this point. So this was a test number 3 for me. I'm going to go here. We'll open it up. We'll look at test number 4. So this is an example of what I was seeing at that time. So if you recall, the numbers in here previously were kind of in that 5% range. And so in this particular example, I multiplied by half, so it brought these down. So it essentially cut most of these in half here, and you can see now we're in a pretty good range right here. We're running slightly rich, 1 to 3% in most cases, which is probably where I'm perfectly fine with this right here as a tune. I mean, you could keep messing with this longer if you wanted to. All these numbers look pretty good to me. We're actually turned a little rich there, or a little lean there, but generally most of these numbers, all numbers look good to me. I mean, if you wanted to do it again, copy all these and go through that same process again. Again, at this point you're multiplying by half because you're easing into the number here. So at this point I'm probably good with this. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm good with this. I like these numbers, -2, -1. I'm not a big fan of running lean in here. So if these were plus threes or positive numbers here, I wouldn't be okay with it, and I would keep tuning. But I don't mind being, 1 to 2% negative here. I don't mind that at all. I like that. I like those numbers. But now that we've done that, now we're going to say, okay, now that we've gotten our fuel, this could, and this could take you 4 or 5 times of doing this before you get where you want. But once you get your fuel where you want, and assuming you were seeing no knock, so you weren't seeing any knock, and then this is where you're going to start to add back the add back your timing. So we're going to go back to here again, and now we got our air fuel where we want. Now we're going to go to the timing. So I'm going to come here. We're going to go back into our spark here. We're going to go to advanced. We're going to go into our high octane table. I'll click on that. And so now we're going to go back to this range that we previously. So before you had written this down, we subtracted 5 from this range. So 2600 here to 0.67 here. So at this point, what I would do is I would highlight the whole entire range here, like before, so the same range, but now we're going to add timing back into it. Now, the most conservative approach to this is adding 1 degree of timing at a time. So you would put a 1 here, and you would plus, and so we're just going to add 1. Even we pulled 5, but we're only going to add 1 back at a time. If never add more than 2 at a time. So never add more than 2. 1's the most conservative thing, but so let's assume we're going to do 1 here. So you could do 2 the first time, but let's just say if it's the first time you've done this, and take it slow, man. That's all. So we're going to just add 1 here. So we're going to add 1 here, and then we're going to go back here, and we're going to do the same thing to the low octane one. And so this was our range previously. So shift down to here. We're going to come over here, and we're going to add 1 back. So we've added 1 degree of timing to everything. So then what we'll do is we're going to come back here, and then we're going to do a file save as. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to save the file, and then I'm going to take this one I had, and then I'm going to just say something like what I would normally do is just say +1 timing, and then I would save it. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this right here. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to load this into the vehicle, and I'm going to do another pull. And so when I do the other pull here, what I'm going to want to look at is now I'm focused on timing. So that's here. So what we're trying to look for. So here. So we're going to do another pull, and this is a similar pull. So we're going to be from 3,000 RPMs. We're going to pull. We're going to make sure we don't see any knock here. So if you don't see any knock, and then you say, okay, my knock's good. At the same time, you could, let me see if I have one where I've added some timing to it. Because in this one, let's see. All right, so here is one where I added 1 degree of timing to it. So we came here, and I added 1 degree of timing. Where's I'm at here? So this one I added a degree of timing because before we were running like 15 degrees, and I had 16 degrees. But you can see I did actually ended up with a hair amount of knock right here. But I mean, it was just a blip, so it's probably false knock. If it was shooting up through the roof here and coming down, or if it was doing something like that, then I know I'm getting real knock here. When if I see this right here, I'm not overly concerned with getting this little blip down here. It pulled less than 1 degree of timing here. So I'm at 16 degrees of timing because I added 1 degree. And I'd say, okay, well, I'm gonna add another degree and see what I do. So I'd go back there. We'd do the same exact process again. We come back into HP tuners. You come in. You highlight that previous section again here. Same process. So you're just doing that over and over again. Now, and so we're going to add another degree here. We're doing this here. It's the same process. High octane table. We were in this range right here. We just need to highlight this. Go here. And we add a degree of timing. 1 degree here plus, and we just save again. So file save as, and I'm just going to go here. So now I've added a total of 2, or if you wanted to, you could be 1 plus 1 because now you've done 2 total. You save that, you're going to upload that again, and you're going to do that. So until you're not gonna you're gonna just add timing back and keep doing logs here until, and then once if you see any knock, and then you know you've gone too far and you're going to want to pull it off. Uh, but you should not be adding back more timing than you had previously. And the reality is that you should have, if you're using the same octane fuel and you've added boost to the vehicle, you really should be adding less timing back, because you can use octane for one or two things. You can use it for boost or you can use it for timing, but you can't use it for both. So if if you've moved to race fuel, or you've done something like that where you've added additional octane, then you can probably add additional spark. So you're going to want to just pay attention to what's happening here and look at these logs. Let me see if I have a log where I saw some spark and maybe I backed it off. So here, this was another one from the same thing. Did we have any knock here? See, this one right here, whereas I actually had a pretty good amount of knock retard right here. So this is where I would have probably called it good at this point, because I tried to add another degree of timing, but I got pretty good. I got 2 degrees of knock right there. Again, this likely could be false knock, but you can see what's happening to my timing. I mean, I have the knock retard, 2 degrees of knock retard here. It pulled so much out that it's only giving me 4.2 degrees of timing. It corrected itself, and then I saw some more knock right here. So at this point, I would probably say, okay, well, I've actually probably added too much in at this point, so I'm going to pull a degree of timing back out and retest it and make sure I'm not getting any knock. So anyways, that's the general process that I go through when I'm tuning for wide open throttle tuning. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, there's a lot of information on GM Gen 5 tuning out there. Well, I can't say a lot, but there's other ones. So, I mean, ultimately, you just need to take in as much information as you can and pull what you want from different people that are providing information and come up with how you want to do it yourself. And ultimately, it's your decision on how you do it. So, I think I've covered everything, and I'm sure I've forgotten stuff, but either way, man, I hope it was helpful. Thumbs up, questions down below. But again, I'm not a tuner for hire here, so I'm not going to be answering a lot of my vehicles doing this. What should I do type questions. If there's too many questions, and as far as that, then you're probably better off to go have a professional go through it with you. But I'll help where I can, and if it's a simple enough question, I'll answer it for you. As always, like, subscribe. Thanks, guys.